Welcome to the Enterprise Management lesson on leadership in a joint environment. Throughout Enterprise Management, you will have several short modules on leadership interspersed throughout the course. By the time you complete these modules, you will be able to assess the impact leadership skills have on intra- and inter-organizational capacities. This module of leadership focuses on ethics. Specifically, we will cover the importance of ethical leadership, setting an ethical tone, and the consequences of ethical and unethical leadership. In this short video, USSOCOM's former Command Sergeant Major Chris Ferris discusses the importance of ethical leadership.
Hello, I'm Command Sergeant Major Chris Ferris, the SOCOM Senior Enlisted Leader, and I'd like to welcome each and every one of you to the Enterprise Management course. So I'd like to talk a bit about ethics because you'll also get a reinforcement of that in this course, but with a bit more of a lens toward that organizational ethics as well as individual. In SOF, ethics is the absolute foundation upon which the entire building is built, and the columns that hold up the roof are the characteristics of SOF: competence, creativity, integrity, and courage. Every mistake we make on the ground puts a crack in our ethical foundation. And like any crack in a foundation, it's not necessarily replaced as much as it is repaired. That weakness is still there. There may be a bit of mortar placed over where the crack was, but the crack runs through the entire foundation. And every crack we put in the foundation builds upon the others until eventually the building could collapse. Remember, you're only as good as your last game. And that's especially true in this community where we're held not only by ourselves to such a high standard, but also by our nation.
Recalling the joint leadership attributes, let's see how ethical leadership fulfills these important guidelines from the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs. In Enterprise Management, as we have mentioned, you will cover all these competencies. The leadership lessons, and each of their component modules, cover JLAs 1, 2, 4, and 5. Ethics is particularly emphasized in the Chairman's second leadership attribute: make sound ethical decisions based on the values and standards of the profession of arms. This lesson will enable you to do just that. Ethics is an essential part of leadership. This leadership model, based on one developed by former Command Sergeant Major of USSOCOM Chris Ferris, helps you understand ethical leadership in a SOF context. Click on the three main parts of the model to learn more about how they apply to ethical leadership. Base, foundation. Ethics form our base of leadership. From ethics, communications, and sound decision-making comes trust. Top. At the top is the knowledge required of leaders. From an ethical foundation of trust, upon which our core values are built, leaders gain the knowledge to lead effectively. Leading effectively is accomplished with organizational leadership, setting an ethical organizational culture, leading change that promotes ethics, and effectively negotiating that change. Finally, all this enables you to exemplify the SOF truths. Humans are more important than hardware. Quality is better than quantity. SOF cannot be mass-produced. Competent SOF cannot be created after emergencies occur. And most special operations require non-SOF support. It's the responsibility of the commander to set the ethical tone for the organization. You, as senior enlisted leaders, bear the responsibility to carry those ethical standards forward. A solid ethical tone for an organization, as we see in the Leadership House model, is the foundation of trust, values, and knowledge of successful leadership. We set the ethical tone through our actions, by establishing expectations, and by finally practicing a true open-door policy for any serious issues, ethical or otherwise. If ethical standards and policy are not put out by the commander, senior enlisted leaders have the responsibility to request these from the commander and convey them to the force. Similarly, senior enlisted leaders also bear the responsibility of modeling ethical standards to the force, even if the commander has not set a solid ethical tone for his or her organization. Regarding ethical tone, think back to the leadership model's 3 layers. If we are deficient in trust, values, or knowledge, we will be seen as tone deaf by others in the organization. You have to be in tune before you can ask others to play on key. A word of advice, this ethical tone needs to start early. You can't wait till you make E8 and then expect to lead an ethical organization. Finally, setting an ethical tone does not happen through osmosis, mind reading, or observation. The message has to be overtly delivered, meticulously communicated, and reinforced daily. If we put out information that is contrary to the organizational values, or act in a way that is inconsistent with the organizational values, we are opening the door for an ethical infraction. Even if we passively support comments that don't represent our values, by remaining silent, turning a blind eye to material that is offensive, or failing to catch infractions within plain view, we have failed to set the ethical tone for the organization. The Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff explicitly directs us to anticipate, communicate, and mitigate risks. Currently, our biggest risk to the force lies in our exposure created by unethical conduct. When the ethical tone has not been firmly set, clearly articulated, and vigorously reinforced, the command begins to spend its time and resources investigating itself for ethical infractions. These infractions include situations involving alcohol, fraternization, sexual harassment, assault or pandering, and various physical altercations. The prevalence of these infractions is a critique on the unit and the leadership, indicating that the ethical tone has not been set. There are consequences for ethical and unethical actions. Special operations have inherent risks. There are certain risks neither we nor the nation can accept. For instance, if a SOF operator makes the decision to visit a brothel over ensuring the presidential protective detail is in order, this incurs a tremendous amount of risk for the nation, the unit, and the operator. We move from risks to tragic consequences when 3 SOF operators drive off a bridge at 3 a.m. with an SUV full of host nation prostitutes, killing everyone inside the vehicle. These international incidents will be felt for many years in the SOF community. Host nation governments, partners, lose trust in American SOF. We are better than this, and of course, you are better than this. Don't let an incident be your legacy. Often, NCO leaders will say in retrospect, "I knew it was just a matter of time before that jackass stepped on it." The key here is to do something before the jackass steps on it. Do the unpopular thing and be a leader. Currently, our tactical competence is world-renowned. Our value has been proven time and again on the battlefields across the globe. However, as the chairman stated, we must anticipate, communicate, and mitigate risks. SOF's legacy rests in your hands, the operator who is deployed to one of the 75 countries where U.S. SOCOM has forces on any given day. Neither the U.S. SOCOM commander, component commanders, or the group commanders can be there to police the actions of that guy, the jackass on your team. It is up to each of you. 50 years from now, you will want to be remembered as a SOF operator who helped change the world versus one of those guys, or worse, that guy. The ethical tone has been set. The rest is up to you. Many times when an ethical infraction occurs, those in leadership positions will try to play the victim card or wonder, how can all these incidents be happening in my organization? The answer normally is that these continual infractions occurred because there was a systemic issue within the organization which fostered the atmosphere of turning a blind eye. These infractions form a crack in the foundation of our leadership house. The result is a loss of trust, not only in ourselves but between ourselves, our sister services, elected officials, and global soft partners. This brings down our leadership house. As a senior enlisted leader, it's up to you to recognize systemic issues in your house and address them before they become trends. This concludes the first module on leadership, ethics. We've discussed the importance of ethical leadership, how to set an ethical tone in your organization, and the consequences of ethical and unethical leadership.